Hey guys, welcome back to Enlightened Turtle. It's your host Kev here. Today we're going to be taking a look at some of the writings of Herodotus and the relationship between the animals of Egypt and the state, whether that be wild or domesticated. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Egypt, though it borders upon Libya, is not a region abounding in wild animals. The animals that do exist in the country, whether domesticated or otherwise, are all regarded as sacred. If I were to explain why they are consecrated to be several gods, I should be led to speak of religious matters, which I particularly shrink away from. The points whereon I have touched slightly here too have all been introduced from sheer necessity. Their custom with respect to animals is as follows. For every kind there are appointed certain guardians, some male, some female, whose business it is to look after them, and this honour is made to descend from father to son. The inhabitants of various cities, when they have made a vow to any god, pay it to his animal, in the way which I will now explain. At the end of making the vow, they shave the head of the child, cutting off all the hair or else half, or sometimes a third part, which they then weigh in balance against the sum of silver, and whatever sum the hair weighs is presented to the guardian of the animals, who thereupon cuts up some fish and gives it to them for food, such being the stuff whereon they are fed. When a man has killed one of the sacred animals, if he did it with malice or prepense, he is punished with death. If unwittingly, he has to pay such a fine as the priest chooses to impose. When an ibis, however, or a hawk is killed, whether it is done in accident or on purpose, the man needs to die. The number of domestic animals in Egypt is very great, and would be greater still were it not for all that befalls the cats. As the females, when they have kittened, no longer seek the company of the males, these last, to obtain once more their companionship, practice a curious artifice. They seize the kittens, carry them off and kill them, but do not eat them afterwards. Upon this, the females, being deprived of their young and longing to supply their place, seek the males once more. Since they are particularly fond of their offspring, on every occasion of a fire in Egypt, the strangest prodigy occurs with the cats. The inhabitants allow the fire to rage as it pleases, while they stand about at intervals and watch these animals, which, slipping by the men or else leaping over them, rush headlong into the flames. When this happens, the Egyptians are in deep affection, and if a cat dies in a private house by a natural death, all the inmates of that household shave their eyebrows. On the death of a dog, they shave their head and the whole body. The cats, on their decease, are taken to the city of Bubastis, where they are embalmed, after which they are buried in certain sacred repositories. The dogs are interred in the cities to which they belong, also in sacred burial places. The same practice obtains with respect to the ichneumons, the hawk and shrew mice. On the contrary, are conveyed to the city of Buto for burial, and the ibises to Hermopolis. The bears, which are sacred in Egypt, and the wolves, which are not much bigger than foxes, they bury wherever they happen to find them lying. The following are peculiarities of the crocodile. During the 4 winter months they eat nothing. They are 4-footed and live indifferently on land or in water. The female lays and hatches her eggs ashore, passing the greater portion of the day on dry land, but at night retiring to the river, the water of which is warmer than the night air and the dew on the ground. Of all the known animals, this is the one which from the smallest size grows to be the greatest, for the egg of a crocodile is but little bigger than that of a goose, and the young crocodile is in proportion to the egg. Yet when it is fully grown, the animal measures frequently 17 cubits, or even more. It has the eyes of a pig, teeth large and tusk-like, of size and proportion to its frame. Unlike any other animal, it is without a tongue. It cannot move its under jaw, and in this respect, too, is singular, being the only animal in the world which moves the upper jaw, but not the under. It has strong claws and scaly skin, impenetrable upon the back. In the water it is blind, but on land it has very keen sight. As it lives chiefly in the river, it has the inside of its mouth constantly covered with leeches. Hence it happens that, while all the other birds and beasts avoid it, with the trochilus it lives in peace, since it owes much of that bird. For the crocodile, when he leaves the water and comes upon the land, is in the habit of lying with its mouth wide open, facing the western breeze. As such, sometimes the trochilus goes into its mouth and devours the leeches. This benefits the crocodile, who is pleased and takes care not to hurt the trochilus. The crocodile is esteemed sacred by some of the Egyptians. By others, he is treated as an enemy. Those who live near Thebes and those who dwell under Lake Maurice regard them with special veneration. In each of these places they keep one crocodile in particular, who is taught to be tame and tractable. They adorn his ears with earrings of molten stone or gold, and put bracelets on his forepaws, giving him daily a set portion of bread with a certain number of victims. And after having thus treated him with the greatest possible attention while alive, they embalm him when he dies and bury him in a sacred repository. The people of Elephantine, on the other hand, are so far from considering these animals as sacred that they even eat their flesh. In the Egyptian language they are not called crocodiles, but champsei. The name of the crocodile was given to them by the Ionians, who remarked their resemblance to the lizard, which in Ionia lives on the walls and is called crocodile. The modes of catching the crocodile are many and various. I shall only describe one of which seems the most worthy of mention. They bait a hook with a chine of pork and let the meat be carried out into the middle of the stream, while the hunter upon the banks holds a living pig, which he labours. The crocodile hears its cries, and making for the sound encounters the pork, which he instantly swallows down. The men on the shore haul, and when they have got the crocodile to land, the first thing the hunter does is plaster his eyes with mud. This once accomplished, the animal is dispatched with ease, otherwise he gives great trouble. The hippopotamus in the canton of Paparrhenius is a sacred animal, but not in any other part of Egypt. It may be thus described: it is a quadruped, cloven-footed, with hooves like an ox, and a flat nose. It has the mane and tail of a horse, huge tusks, which are very conspicuous, and a voice like a horse's neigh. In size it equals the biggest oxen, and its skin is so tough that when dried it is made into javelins. Otters are found in the Nile and are considered sacred. Only two sorts of fish are venerated, that called the Lepidotus and the eel. These are regarded as sacred to the Nile, as likewise among birds is the vulpanther or fox goose. They have also another sacred bird called the phoenix, which I myself have never seen except in pictures. Indeed, it is a great rarity even in Egypt, only coming there according to the accounts of the people of Heliopolis, once in 500 years. When the old phoenix dies, its size and appearance, if it is like in the pictures, are as follows. The plumage is partly red, partly golden, while the general make and size are almost exactly that of an eagle. They tell the story of what this bird does, which does not seem to me to be credible, that he comes all the way from Arabia and brings the parent bird, all plastered over with myrrh, to the temple of the sun, and there buries the body. In order to bring him, they say he first forms a ball of myrrh as big as he finds that he can carry, then he allows out the ball and puts his parent inside, after which he covers over the opening with fresh myrrh, and the ball is then of exactly the same size and weight as at first. So he brings it to Egypt, plastered all over, I have said, deposits it in the temple of the sun. Such is the story they tell of the doings of this bird. In the neighbourhood of Thebes there are some sacred serpents which are perfectly harmless. They are of small size and have 2 horns growing out of the top of the head. These snakes, when they die, are buried in the temple of Zeus, the god to whom they are sacred. I went once to a certain place in Arabia, almost exactly opposite the city of Buto, to make inquiries concerning the winged serpents. On my arrival, I saw the backbones and ribs of serpents in such numbers as it is possible to describe. Of the ribs, there were a multitude of heaps, some great, some small, some middle-sized. The place where the bones lie is at the entrance of a narrow gorge between steep mountains, which thereupon a spacious plain, communicating with the great plain of Egypt. The story goes that with the spring, the winged snakes come flying from Arabia towards Egypt, but are met in this gorge by birds called ibises, who forbid their entrance and destroy them all. The Arabians assert that the Egyptians also admit that it is an account of the service thus rendered that the Egyptians hold the ibis in so much reverence. The ibis is a bird of deep black colour, with legs like a crane. Its beak is strong, hooked, and its size is about that of a landrail. This is a description of the black ibis which contains the serpents. The commoner sort, for there are 2 quite distinct species, has the head and the whole throat bare of feathers. Its general plumage is white, and the head and neck are jet black, as also are the tips of the wings and the extremity of the tail. In its beak and legs it resembles the other species, the winged serpent, but resemble very closely those of a bat, and thus I conclude the subject of the sacred animals. So there we go, guys. That was Herodotus describing the animal life of ancient Egypt from his time period, if he even existed, to be totally honest. Bears in the Nile Delta, I didn't know that was a possibility. I've heard of a bear of Alexandria once, the city up north, right at the edge of the delta on the Mediterranean. Wolves in ancient Egypt, I didn't know that was a possibility either. Obviously he mentions they were only small, the size of foxes really. But yeah, it's fascinating stuff. And obviously the phoenix, like the phoenix rising and all that kind of mad stuff. Now there is in the Liverpool Museum, there's actually a papyrus spell about, it's got the phoenix related to it, and it's to do with immortality, funny enough. I'd love someone who could actually read it to have a look at it and tell me what it says, but you know. And the flying serpents, another one that's a Herodotus original. no one else has ever really made too much mention of it. I think there's been a couple of accounts mentioned, but it's designated as like a mythical creature, well, mythical species. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that one, guys. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.